we're going to talk about soldering. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wire, I'm going to cut a couple pieces off of it. Now I'm going to show you how you can strip the wire, solder two pieces of wire together with nothing more than wire and your Lexan body shear scissors to slice the wire. Get a pair of helping hands if you can. If you don't have helping hands, get some. Check your local hobby shop to see if they have any. If they don't, they can get you some. If for some reason they're like, hey, we can't get these, or on super back order, head over to Harbor Freight. You can get you some there too. Get them at your local hobby shop first. They're a lot better quality. These are from Harbor Freight. They're absolutely trash, but they work for now. Harbor Freight, you get what you pay for. I use the Track Power TK950. You're going to have a nice transition now because I'm going to get my workstation set up and I need to plug the soldering iron in. So see you around the flip. All right, guys, we are back. Hello. First off, here's some things you need. One, soldering station. I am using a chisel tip. I do not care for using point tip on full-size cars. If you're soldering on drones or something of that matter, you definitely need to use a point tip. Point tip is much more precise. It's smaller area, but we're using 12 gauge wire, and so this is what we're going to be using today. 12 gauge wire, Lexan shears. I'm going to be using Miniatronics Rosin Core High Grade 6040 solder. I found that this is to be the cleanest solder in the market. I've used several others and they get a lot of black goo in them or brown stuff and it's just really gross. Bottle of water. You may think, why do I need water? This is why you need water. You need to make sure that sponge is good and wet, so that you can clean that tip off and make it nice and shiny. The water can go away now, unless you're thirsty. The other thing, like I said, is the helping hands. We'll get to this in a moment. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this really easy, guys. I'm simply going to cut off about that much of wire. Let's say we're doing a 10 scale buggy. We're going to need that much of wire 2 times over. Obviously, you're going to measure it on the car if you're doing a vehicle. I'm just doing this to show you basic solder. So you've got your wire. You got it cut down to the length that you think you need. The way to know where you need to cut down on length is wherever your motor tabs are, you're going to hold it to about that point. You see that right there? Just so you know that there is about that much overlap, because that's how much you need to go on the wire. You're going to take your Lexan shears, if you don't have wire strippers, and just score the outside of that. Just score the outside of it good there. Also, I have my iron on right now, and it is set at 850 degrees, and you can just use your thumbnail and pull that off. Now, since I'm butting these wires together, I'm going to go ahead and do that twice. And as you're doing this, be very careful not to cut all the way through the wire, because you want as much of that wire on there as you can, because that's where your current flows. We bring our helping hands over here. You're going to clip in one wire. It seems as though I've bent my helping hands. Again, as I've said, Harbor Freight, you get what you pay for. You would not be able to just bend a name brand helping hands like that. They're not that cheaply made. Got our wires in there. Now you have to do what's called, look at all the wire threads on here. You have to do what's called tinning the wire. Now tinning, what that means is you want to make sure that that wire is fully engulfed in solder. So I'm going to get these upright so that we can get them coated. Now the reason I do that is I want the solder to flow into the wires. And you'll see what I mean here in just a moment. What you need to do is get your iron on there. I apologize again, guys. I know the quality's not great. I'm using my iPhone. If you want to be able to help me do this well, please like and subscribe, and I would greatly appreciate it. If I can get to the point where I start getting paid from YouTube, I can upgrade my camera and upgrade equipment to show you actually how to do stuff better. Now, you've noticed I start with a good line of solder away from my finger. The reason being is I don't want to burn my hands. This is 850 degrees. That's hot. Just start feeding right on the top of the wire, right where that chisel tip meets. And then, now you may be wondering why I'm blowing. The reason I'm blowing is I'm actually blowing for two reasons. First, I want that solder to cool quickly so it gets a nice sheen. Secondly, I want to make sure that the lead fumes do not go up my nose. So I want them to go away from me. So there is 2 tinned sets. Right there, all nice and pretty. See there? I apologize again for the quality. So now I'm going to, that's a hot wire. I'm going to rotate these sideways. And now we have them like that. What I'm going to do, since they're like that, is move them in as much as I can. And then try to make sure they're straight. Because see, this is the most difficult part, is soldering 2 wires together, in my opinion. It's much more difficult than trying to solder a motor wire onto a motor or something of that caliber. Now, if you notice, those are touching each other. But they're also now cooled down and hard as a rock. This is the more difficult part. You have to get them to where they're touching with just a hair of pressure because you want them to melt together. Now you may be thinking that's super easy. You just take your soldering tip and you just touch on it, right? No, the problem is if you touch the top, you're going to push them apart and the chisel tip is going to go straight through. Your soldering iron is going to go straight through. You need to touch to the bottom until it gets it hot. Feed just a little bit of solder onto it. And what that does is it makes it to where when you're touching the bottom, it's creating a heat that goes from the bottom to the top. The solder's touching the top. Once the wire is fully warmed all the way through, that solder will melt onto there, and then you get one wire. It's a pretty clean, good solder there. The one thing that I would say is when you do this, make sure that you then put heat shrink over the wire and use a lighter to shrink down over it. Now, I am out of heat shrink right now, which is why I cannot do so. But that's what you would want to do. The reason you want to do that is so you don't electrocute anything. The worst thing is when you have 3 of these next to each other, which is electric current going in and out and rotating around when your DC power from your battery is converted by your speed controller, which is your ESC, electronic speed control, to the motor, which is an alternating current motor. So you're taking DC power, converting it to alternating current. That's why you have 3 wires on your motors now, not 2. So, fun fact. Anyway, this right here, if it touches another wire, will short out your whole car because you're creating a feed that's not supposed to be there. Now, that being said, I'm going to grab this really tight. I can't pull it apart. That is a good solid solder joint. If you can't pull it apart, it's ready for the car. So there's a little solder tip for you, and that's how we solder wires together. I hope this was somewhat helpful. I know that soldering is one of the things that not everybody can do. Not everybody's been shown how to do. I was shown how to do it once by working at a hobby shop. I'd never soldered before, and then was told, good luck, you're soldering like everything now. In the 4.5 years I was there, I must have soldered, it was an insane amount of soldering. I don't really have a whole lot more for you guys today, but I hope that this helps, and I hope that it help you further your own fun in the hobby, and that you don't have to worry about having to pay other people to solder anymore. I know that's one thing that a lot of guys are like, man, I get sick of doing this. Every time I get a battery, it's like 10 bucks additionally to get solder done, whereas if you can do the soldering yourself, you're out like 5 bucks for a 4-pack of plugs, and then that's, you know, what could have been $40 in the long run if you had $10 in each one. Hopefully this helps you save some money in the long run, helps you have more fun, because to be honest, I actually enjoy soldering as much as I enjoy gluing tires. And I know most people hate both of those things. I really like doing both of those things. They're more detail-oriented work. Once you get to the point where you're doing well with the solder, you'll get that nice mirror finish. I'll show you on this one again real quick, because this kind of gives you an idea. Those motor wires there, they have just that nice shiny little bubble. That is a very good solder. I was actually very proud of that one. The one thing I would say is try to avoid what I just did. Don't brush your counter free of the little wire fibers that you get from cutting the wire, because metal splinters really hurt. That's it for today. Like and subscribe for more and to keep up to date. Also follow us over on Facebook and Instagram. If you have any questions at all, feel free to comment below. Or you can even email us at You can ask any questions on there, whether it be something related to this, related to previous videos, or if you just have a question in general, or if you need some tires glued, hit me up. That's the end of today's video.
Until next time, keep the shiny side up, the rubber side down, and remember to stay in the groove.